Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Harry DeCosmo, freelance journalist for BBC Sport and others, and I'm here to preview Newcastle United against Burnley Saturday at 3 o'clock. The first Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff, would you believe, at home for Newcastle of this calendar year. It's absolutely relentless. It was only yesterday I was here reviewing the Carabao Cup victory over Manchester City, and I'm back again with a preview of a league game, and a big league game at that for Newcastle against a winless Burnley side who are part of that, as I mentioned at Bramall Lane last week, that three teams that are really struggling, who've come up this season. They've really struggled to adjust to the Premier League, and Vincent Kompany is a really good manager. I think he's going to do very good things in his career, and he's going to do very good things at Burnley. I think he'll keep Burnley up this season, but at the moment it's not quite working out for him, and I think he'll really dread the idea of coming to St James's Park to play a Newcastle side that have now fully back, looking like they're back at their best and fully looking like they're full of confidence again. It's not that straightforward though, because obviously Eddie Howe's done his press conference this morning. Apologies, this video is a bit late, by the way. I was on the BBC Sport live text, bringing you all of the press conference action from all the Premier League presses up and down the country today, starting with Eddie Howe at about 10 o'clock this morning. What he was saying was that there's a bit of an injury crisis potentially with Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak, both doubtful. Obviously, Callum Wilson missed the game against Manchester City through a minor hamstring problem. Isak came off after scoring the winner, and he didn't have to go down the tunnel or anything, but he was hobbling. He sat on the bench, and there's a little bit of doubt over both of them and whether they'll be fit. I think by the sounds of it, both of them will probably be able to make it. At least one of them will be able to make it to lead the line tomorrow. But the contingency plan without either of them will be Anthony Gordon, who obviously has been superb for Newcastle on the left this season and the right in the game against Brentford. The kickstarter of his unbelievable form this season was the under-21 Euros with England, where he was player of the tournament, playing down the middle as a number 9. So Newcastle are well stocked in that position, even without their two main men. But I think probably Isak will be fit, because I think although Wilson probably would have been in line to play in this game, any little doubt with him because of the way his schedule works and the workload that has to be managed with his age and injury record and hamstrings in particular, which is the thing he's struggling with. They've got to be a bit more cautious. Sven Botman's going to also have a late fitness test. There's a few little niggly issues, and Bruno obviously went over on his ankle against Man City as well. Few little problems that are starting to come through, which are as a result probably of the situation with the number of games purely that Newcastle have been playing. The results have been fine. Obviously, they got like that point in Milan, and then that victory over Brentford, the point in Milan, victory over Sheffield United, and then that win in the midweek against Man City. They haven't really shown any ill effects of the number of games, but purely because they can't recover properly, they can't go full intensity in training. They have to go full intensity in the matches. Those injury problems, those niggly injury problems, are going to happen, and it just so happens that they're happening to the key players. I think that Botman will probably be fine again. I think Bruno will probably be fine again. But again, the question is whether they'll be held back for PSG in midweek, because Newcastle, that is probably as important a game in a different way, because Newcastle really need to make the most of their home games, and a statement win over PSG or a statement result against PSG, who are quite comfortably the favourites to win the group of death in the Champions League, be a real positive. So I think Newcastle do feel like they need to make some sort of statement in their game. So Eddie Howe's got a few questions over his first team squad to answer for this game, but I think generally Newcastle are in a position where they can be confident going into this game. I think they should be absolutely fine against Burnley, but these injury issues are a problem. Elsewhere, Eddie Howe was asked about Bruno's contract, and obviously I brought you last week the information that is pretty much done. Additionally told in late spring that was a priority for Newcastle, and I'm not surprised that it's getting done to this point. He batted away the question of the release clause, but didn't deny it. He sort of just said he didn't know. I think, why would you, if you're a manager of a Premier League football club with a player like Bruno Guimaraes in your team, why would you admit that there's a release clause in that contract? I think there very much is, but I've been through that, and I think that isn't necessarily the worst problem in the world for Newcastle to have, given that any player could be sold at any time, and it pretty much guarantees a solid fee of market value. And I know there's been a few people disagreeing with that, if he does leave and when he does leave eventually. But it's 2 more years on his contract as well, which is a great thing. And then obviously talk of Joelinton and Sven Botman, Sean Longstaff as well. There's a few players I think will start being talked about for contracts in the coming weeks and months, because the existing squad has to be kept happy as everything gets better. It can't just be all about recruiting. There's a lot of key players that have got a lot of things that have still got a lot to give to this team, and I think that they fully deserve recognition for that. Joelinton's contract runs out in a couple of years. He's a prime example of somebody that really does need to be tied down, because if he was ever to become available, I think pretty much most teams in Europe would be chasing him now, given this form and an upturn in that since Eddie Howe came in. Because there's a sense that Newcastle can push themselves back into that top of the table picture or Champions League chasing picture with a win here. That'll be enough to get everybody up for this game. Burnley are obviously there for the taking. They defensively have shipped a lot of goals, and Newcastle will start fast. Will Burnley sit back? I mean, I think Vincent Kompany's not been the type of manager to compromise on his principles so far this season, which could really play into Newcastle's hands. They'll come forward, and that'll leave space in the final third for Newcastle to exploit on the sort of counter press, which I hope will be back most. I mean, I've seen a few stats of how Newcastle aren't pressing as high this season, and in one sense you can say that's understandable given the number of games and all the factors I mentioned about the injuries, the number of games, the situation with the added time at the end of games as well. So the short, sharp bursts, as I mentioned in a previous video, can't happen. So there's lots of factors why Newcastle aren't pressing as high. That has compromised their ability to attack games early and do what they did last season. Having said that, there is a reason to be proud of them for adapting to that and now becoming more of a possession-based team who can play longer into the game and grow into games a bit more, which is something that can be good against lower block teams. But I think the fact that Burnley will not likely sit back in this game will mean that Newcastle can go for it from the start and make a real statement with a victory. I'm not at St James's Park because of the train strike, unfortunately, which as a freelancer is kind of a frustration of my situation, but I am hoping to be at St James's Park on Tuesday afternoon to bring you coverage of Newcastle's press conference before the PSG game, and also Luis Enrique and PSG's training on the pitch in the evening as well, hopefully. So please like, share and subscribe if you like what you hear, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.